Pros and cons of classical liberalism.
Before classical liberalism, people used monarchies in which there was no freedom to move up the classes and you had to stay in whatever class you were born into. However, when classical liberalism was introduced, the idea of classism was removed and people had the opportunity to move up and down the classes and work to where they wanted to get in life. Despite that, in reality, you needed to have money in order to make money, so the rich got more rich and the poor got poorer.
When classical liberalism was introduced, it gave the people the right to vote. This is good because it gave them the freedom to elect or remove any leader they saw fit. However, only the rich white men could vote, which made them choose the leaders that were rich white men who made laws that benefited rich white men.
Another positive that classical liberalism brought was lowering the taxes. This promoted individuality and benefited people in the sense that they could keep their money. But because of this, no social programs were available for the people because the government had less funding. So if you were sick and needed a hospital, you had to fend for yourself if you were poor. During the era of classical liberalism, industrialization and urbanization were introduced. This caused people to move to big cities in order to compete for jobs at factories. Because there were a lot of people competing for these jobs, only the best candidates would get the job, which inevitably made the companies better. But since there were only limited jobs, lots of people didn't get those jobs. So the cities became crowded and dirty as there was a surplus of workers.
Before classical liberalism, only people of a certain class were allowed to purchase or own their own land. However, after this, they were given the freedom to purchase or own their own land, and they had the opportunity to make profit off of it. But on the negative side of this, not a lot of people had enough money to pay a house, and if anything happened to your property, you were liable for it. Because of the free market, the business owners were able to make a lot of money, which in turn created more jobs and made the economy thrive. However, this led the business owners to have a huge wage gap from the working class, and it also led to the working class being exploited, and an example of this would be the child laborers.
One of the main points of classical liberalism is free market and competition. Because of this, people could make their own money for the first time, and they were self-supported and didn't have to rely on other people. But because there was so little government involvement, there were no rules and regulations on what companies could and couldn't do. This led to monopolies being created everywhere and inflation happening. Classical liberalism promoted the idea of economic growth through successful businesses. This was good for people, as the people themselves would be making more money than they were before. However, these businesses were founded on corruptions because they had no regulations and rules yet and used immoral systems like slavery.